Noon, good morning, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's Modern Sales Pros live Q&A about optimizing lead management, sponsored by our friends at Lean Data. Before we jump into this today, Don, it's been a while since you've been on an MSP panel, but actually you're one of the OGest MSP members. How long have you been an MSP member?
So it was funny. For the history of MSP, it got its start. Pete Kazanji had just sold his company to Monster. He was working with First Round Capital. First Round Capital approached me back in 2015 about doing an interview on their blog, First Round Blog. It's a great blog on sales operations and what my story was when I did my first sales operations job at Yammer way back in 2010. And we did the interview, and they were like, "Hey, we should introduce you to Pete Kazanji. He's doing this thing where he's trying to not reinvent the wheel around sales ops." And so Pete and I met. And Pete's like, "Yeah, I'm starting this thing called Modern Sales Pros. I want to help people not have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to sales operations, because from a founder perspective, at First Round, they work with a lot of founders. They want to help those founders not have to, do something different than what is best practice around sales operations." And so Pete had a dinner, I think, in the First Round office back in 2015 of a bunch of people that he just reached out to. I was part of that group. I think it was 20 or 25 of us at that dinner. And that was kind of like our first salon where we all talked about, hey, here's who I am, here's what I do. What are some things that you're challenged with today, and here's how you're fixing it. And that just it just blew up from there. Like now it's however many thousands of people that you guys have on the mailing list. But that's how it started. That was my start with MSP.
That's how Don got connected. And for those of you who don't know, Don, aside from being a very long time MSP member, I think Don, at last count, has set the record for most nominations to MSP, and it's not even close. I think Don is in the hundreds of nominations, which is phenomenal.
I can talk about why that happened too. After I had joined SalesLoft, Kyle Porter, CEO, founder of SalesLoft, he is a huge fan of MSP. And his thing when I joined, he was like, "You know what? I want you to go invite every one of our customers to MSP." And so it was like a hey, here's a great community of people that are solving problems around revenue operations and sales operations. I think you should be a member. I've got a lot of value out of it. I think you would too. And I mean, I think from that I probably added 600 or 700 people to MSP while I was, and they were all SalesLoft customers during my tenure there. So it was that's why I won the award, and that's how that came about. But I think I even posted on LinkedIn recently. One of the things that I've been doing in the absence of in-person events is just going through and connecting with people on LinkedIn, and I connected with someone who I had invited, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and I just reconnected with her, and she actually got her position that she's at now through her membership in MSP. Because MSP, if you don't know, Richard, you could probably share, has a great recruitment back channel of people that are looking for roles, and she got laid off during the COVID breakout back in March, and I think MSP had a great list of companies hiring. Hazel Health was one of those companies she interviewed and got that job. So it was really great for me to see some real world examples of people getting benefits from being a member of MSP, that it was helping advance their career in a time of the pandemic with COVID.
Awesome. Yeah, it's an awesome story, awesome community, and we're excited, Don, to have you here today joining us for this webinar. I don't need to pitch MSP. Don did a way better job than I could, but our goal is to Don's point, to create a community and create an environment where revenue leaders can come and get the most difficult questions they have answered without having to reinvent the wheel or recreate anything. And for those of you who are online today, you're not members, you're going to be invited afterwards. We do welcome you in. It's great. You get to learn from people like Don, not just in formats like this, but through a robust online discussion. But enough about MSP. We've got Don here from Lean Data. Don, do you want to just say a few words about Lean Data?
Yeah, so Lean Data, I joined Lean Data in March. We were customers at SalesLoft. I was very aware of the benefits that Lean Data brought. I've always seen Lean Data as solving a pain that every company has as it grows its sales organization. You get to a point where you want to start making sure that leads are assigned to the right person in Salesforce, and that's really in short how lean data can help you. Making sure that you reduce that speed to lead as you're trying to bring folks into your database and get them assigned and followed up by the right person within your organization in the fastest manner possible. That is at base, what lean data does for an organization. And I'm very honored to be a part of the team here in sharing our story and what we do.
Yeah, and it's exciting to have Don on because he's done this a bunch of times. For folks that are online here, we're going to have Don introduce himself in a second, but we're going to be launching a poll here in a second. Just go ahead and fill that out. That's going to help Don and I kind of adjust the content and the programming here today to meet you guys and meet the audience where you are. So Don, you shared a little bit of your background, how you've been a member of MSP since really the beginning. What would be great is for you to kind of give your story as a revenue ops person. I know it, we talked about it in prep, but give us the buildup.
Yeah, so like as I said, when I joined MSP, First Round Capital had approached me about kind of my story of sales operations. They were very interested in it because it was really my first role in sales operations. I had done inside sales, I had done inside sales management, my entire career. At high tech companies from when I first left college all the way up until about 2008, 2009. What happened in 2008, 2009, we kind of ran through that whole issue of the economy collapsing. The company I was at the time was a small company you may have heard of called MuleSoft. At the time, it was about 75 people. They went through a layoff, and the VP of sales that I worked with there, I had worked with him. This was the second company, MuleSoft, that I had worked with him at, and he told me when he was laying me off, he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna be a reference for you, but I don't want you to go get another sales job. I want you to go find a sales operations job." He says, "It's very clear to me you have a passion for this. You're an okay sales rep, but I think you'd be way better if you went and did sales operations." And so he found a recruiter for me that I worked with, and I landed at Yammer. And Yammer, if you're not familiar with, at the time was a small company that had just spun out of another organization called Genie. It was led by David Sachs, who is one of the PayPal mafia folks. He runs I think he runs a VC now, but at the time he had spun this company out and really believed that Yammer, which is the equivalent of Slack today. So if you could think of Slack before the time of Slack, it was really Yammer. And he's like, "Hey, I need help doing sales operations." I walked him through my whole background and why I thought I'd be a good fit for it. And he took a chance on me and hired me. And so we kind of grew Yammer from a $0 run rate in enterprise sales. I went through, got all the process and architected Salesforce and said, "Okay, let's do it." And we grew that all the way to an $80 million run rate in under 3 years. And we ended up getting acquired by Microsoft in 2012 for $1.2 billion. So when I left, I was like, whoa, maybe I am good at the sales operations thing, and I should make it my career. And that's kind of how I got my start in sales operations.
It's a phenomenal run, and I think we could probably share David Sachs and Yammer stories, and that's a separate conversation over drinks sometime.
Yeah.
But as you can hear, folks, Donna is a wealth of knowledge. He's been in the discipline of sales and revenue operations for an incredibly long time, and he's going to be answering all the questions today about optimizing lead management. For those of you who submitted questions during registration, thank you very much. For those of you who are here live and maybe didn't submit a question or Don mentioned something that you want to chat more about, please do throw that question in the Q&A panel. You can upvote questions, you can comment on questions. I will say this, we will not get to every question today. There's going to be so much, there's so many great ones that were submitted during registration. But by putting your question in the Q&A panel, that gives Don the chance to follow up with you afterwards with maybe it's a piece of content that answers your question, or maybe it's just, Don wants to go grab a virtual coffee with you and talk through that problem at the next level of depth.
Yep.
So with that, folks, just by way of background, what we did, everyone who registered and submitted a question, we pulled those registration questions together. Don and I and the team sat down and looked at all of them and pulled them into some different themes. And these were the key themes that we got around optimizing lead management. The first was best practices. The second was process and responsibility, as much on the people side as it is on the just how do you actually process this thing. Lead scoring, technology, and then finally the role that data plays in all of this. So we're going to get started here, and we're going to start talking just with best practices. And this is, this isn't a one size fits all model, but Don, maybe at a high level, you can talk about some of the things that you think of when you're building a lead routing process or lead flow process, and then we can start to go through some of these questions which we've paraphrased here.
Yeah. So like, I think as you're looking at how you set up lead routing, especially if you're a smaller organization, right? As you know, I think a lot of folks that are in MSP are at startups that are on that trajectory to be high growth, right? The next snowflake, hopefully, you're on a path of growth, and you really want to set something up at the outset that is going to be able to scale for your organization. Right. So, I think when folks first start out and you got maybe a small sales team, you're not giving a lot of thought to how are we going to make sure, as I'm carving out territories, are we going to do round robin? Are we going to do, geography based, or, are we going to do it by segments, or, you're kind of thinking about those things. And then, the next thing is, oh, you're going to set up alerts in Salesforce. When a lead hits Salesforce, I'll make sure I sign to the right person. And maybe you're going to set up territory rules in Salesforce. The unfortunate thing is that doesn't really scale very well. And that's really, where you have to think of what types of things can you do to reduce the speed to lead and make sure that those leads that are coming into your system are getting assigned to the right person from the outset. So that when you do follow-up, it's contextual, they're getting responded to by the right person in your organization. And the overall thing is that you want to make sure at the outset that you're providing a path for your customer to have an amazing journey as they start out as a prospect and move through that whole process of becoming a customer. That's really the kind of the foundational thing, I think you should think about when you're doing best practices. And
Yeah,
so, I mean, go ahead,
yeah,
Richard.
go ahead, Don. I was going
No,
to say, I think that's a great start to this. And I think one of there's a couple themes that we pull out here, even in best practices, but the first one, and we always used to worry about that as, sales and marketing leaders, how do you identify the leaks in the bucket, right? Where you got a great top of funnel, but maybe nothing's falling through. How do you identify those leaks, or what are some of the best practices around that?
Yeah, I mean, so that's the big, the marketing versus sales thing, right? Like marketing is like, hey, why aren't these leads being followed up on? And sales is like, oh, we're not getting good enough leads, and just this back and forth thing that's a yin and yang. So, I think from a revenue operations perspective, what we want to do is provide the data that shows, either marketing is right or sales is right? And so, marketing, this is probably a marketing person that asked this question, because they're really focused on understanding, where are the leaks? When we put leads in at the top of the funnel, where are they falling out? Like, is it being followed up properly by sales, right? So that's kind of the first step in finding that leaky bucket is, okay, it's been assigned to somebody. Did they follow up in a timely manner? Are there SLAs, right, around lead follow-up? Is there a promise from sales of like, hey, when a lead gets assigned to us, we're going to follow up within X amount of time frame, right? And whether you do that through automation rules, through your sales engagement platform, like your Outreach or your sales loft, or you're relying on a rep to do it manually, that's kind of the first sign of where a leak might exist, is that a lead has entered the system and it's now not being followed up on, right? And then it just kind of, as it moves through the funnel, it kind of goes from there. Like you want to, one of the things that I've always tried to do is look at, we're really good at looking at opportunity stages, right? Salesforce does a great job of saying, hey, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, here are the conversion metrics around stages around your opportunity, but we don't really have that equivalent for leads, right? Like, so one of the things that I try to do for my demand gen team is I say, okay, like, rather than saying, is a lead, MQL or not, I want to say, okay, a lead's an MQL, but then it moves into what I call a sales accepted stage, right? So now I know that a sales accepted stage is when a rep has taken action against a lead, right? And then you can then look at all the leads that are in that sales accepted stage. And then the next stage might be sales qualified, right? So now that a rep has taken action, they have them in a sequence, they have them in a cadence, they're reaching out to them, they're making phone calls, they're reaching out on LinkedIn, sending gifts, sending emails. At some point, a rep's going to have to say, yes, this person is qualified, I've set a meeting, or no, they're not, I need to send it back and put them into a nurture stage, right? So, and that's really that's what I call the sales qualified lead, right? So now I've now they've gone through that sales accepted stage. Now I want to move into that sales qualified stage. Well, sales qualified stage is now, okay, it is qualified. Now I want to get a meeting. I want to get an opportunity associated to it. I want to add them as a contact role, and then once they're there, you can manage them through as going through the different stages of opportunity. So I think the other area that you can really identify those leaks is, now that it is marketing qualified and it's had action against it, is the action that you're taking, is the action that your sales team taking leading to conversion to sales qualified, right? So like, how are those sequences and cadences that you're adding them to performing in as they're moving through that process? Do you have the right content that is causing people to click, to reply? Are your emails getting opened? Those are all areas that I think you can also look to see where you might have leaks in that bucket as you're moving to hopefully becoming an opportunity, which is really that conversion point where marketing can say, okay, we have a win. We've converted a lead to an opportunity.
One of the things that you hit on here a little bit, and there's a bunch of questions on like, how do I do this manually versus automated? What are some tips or tricks that you have around manual lead management, right? Making sure that we're moving things along, but it's a human's got to do some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, manually, it is, it's difficult, right? I mean, you can do it. That's really where you got to have a lens on activity metrics, right? So in talking about, once a lead is sales accepted, you have to have a way to identify in Salesforce, did somebody take action? Then you got to run reports, maybe set alerts, have dashboards to look at, has something been followed up on at the point that it has entered into the system, right? And measuring what the delta is, and then having those reports and alerts set up so that you can, notify, the right manager or somebody in marketing that something isn't moving through in the way that you would hope it would, if you had something that was automated through like a sales engagement platform, or being able to identify, is a lead being followed up on by sales through like engagement, how we would use engagement and lead data. It is a little bit more of a heavy lift. It's more, it's more onerous, but you can do it if in setting up some of the reports in Salesforce against some manual, additional fields that you would probably have to add to your records in your database.
And I think there's a lot here, and folks, please do use the Q&A panel. We're going to do our best to have a balance of some of the registration questions that came in and some of the live questions. I want to actually jump to this point on question 6. We hear this a lot in MSP. How does marketing get credit? How do we make sure marketing gets credit? And in this case, this person's running some ABM activities in HubSpot, and then there's some stuff going on in Salesforce. Like, how do you at Lean Data, or how do you recommend folks track marketing contribution?
Yeah, I mean, what I've always liked to do is make sure that whatever campaigns that you have in HubSpot or whatever your marketing platform is, that you have equivalent campaigns set up in Salesforce as well, right? Because I think if you're just managing everything in HubSpot or your marketing platform, and you're running all your metrics and reporting off of how you're doing on your campaigns in marketing, in your marketing platform, but you don't have an equivalent measurement in Salesforce, you're kind of missing that key element of what's going on with that lead in Salesforce outside of your marketing platform, right? And so, what we try to do is have a one-to-one relationship for every marketing campaign that you have set up, is that you have an equivalent one in Salesforce that you're attributing your leads and contacts to, so that when you do have a conversion, when you do have something that ends up being closed won, you can go back and look and see, well, what campaigns were they in that influenced that deal? What campaign was it that triggered them to become a new opportunity? And then have that value associated back to those marketing campaigns that you have in HubSpot or whatever marketing platform that you're using. That's usually that's what we've done. That's what I've seen done, is making sure that you almost have it as a rule that you don't have a campaign that exists in your marketing platform that doesn't exist in Salesforce, so that you can have that one-to-one relationship for reporting.
That makes a ton of sense. And there's actually a live question coming in here, and it dovetails in with question or sort of point number 7 here. This question from John Simo. Do you have a recommended ideal range of time, right, for a good lead life cycle customer journey? Like, what's your perspective on that?
I think it's fair to say it really depends on your business, right? It's the way that I would measure that, right? I mean, what you want to do is like I was saying, like, you want to look at those closed won deals that you have in your pipeline and look and see the campaigns that they were attributed to, and when they attributed, at what point in time that they became that, they entered the top of the funnel, and then look at your entire closed won, plethora of opportunities, and see what is ideal, right? From that, you can look and see, and then I would even take the extra step. I'm not looking at it just overall, but also by the segment that you might have for your business, right? So you usually typically have a sales team that's broken up by geography, they're broken up by segment. You can then take that analysis and drive it down even granularly down to the segment or the geographic team that you have, and to see what is that ideal life cycle look like, and then apply that against your current pipeline, so that if you see people that are maybe falling outside of that number, if you find out that your ideal time frame is 90 days and you see opportunities in your pipeline that are hitting 120, 150 days, that might be a yellow flag, right? Or if you're looking at your pipeline and you find you have a lot of deals that have just started, well, then you probably have more work to do before those are going to be closed won, and you can start looking to see, and start to determine, when these deals are probably going to close based on your historic measurement of what that looks like.
I think that's a great perspective. A lot of questions coming in here. I'm going to fire this one off real quick to you, Don, and then we're going to move on to some of the next questions. And if we have time, we'll get back to some of these. So this is from Alex. A question on lead stage versus lead status. What's the right way to use this?
Yeah, this is a great. I mean, this is literally some of the things that we're working on Lean Data internally today, right? From a demand gen perspective, I have brought the concept of lead stage, and we're starting to implement that ourselves. Lead status is something that's different, right? Because lead status is something that you really want to be dynamic, right? Lead status can change. It can move to being something that is a new, interesting moment that may have happened with a lead that is already in the status of being SQL, right? So if someone's already in SQL and they have a new lead status that is an interesting moment, well, that's great, right? That's a good thing. You want to identify those. You want to surface those to your sales team. You want to show that you have marketing campaigns that are causing lead statuses to be updated to new or interesting moment that need action, right? You really want to drive your actions around lead status. Whereas lead stage speaks more to the longer journey of where that person might be in their customer journey, right? Because you could have somebody that maybe they've been associated to an opportunity already, and that opportunity was closed lost, right? So that lead status might be associated to opportunity, right? So they've already gone through the funnel at least up to the stage where they've hit an opportunity once, but now you have a new status because they've registered for a webinar, or they downloaded a white paper, or they went to a virtual event, right? So the status of that lead, even though the stage is they've become an opportunity, you now have a status where you need sales to take action. So status really drives what you want sales to do with that lead, whereas stage speaks to where they are in the life cycle.
Lots of great insights here, and keep
And,
the questions.
and to answer the question, I do think it's necessary, right? Because
Yeah.
status speaks to where you need sales to take action, where stage is really where that person is the life cycle journey. Let me give you an example. If you have a lot of leads that are at that status of being associated to an opportunity, from a marketing perspective, you've already done the investment, right? They have gone through a marketing campaign that you've spent money on. They've gone through sales qualification. Sales has taken the action of putting that person through a cadence or a sequence. They've made the phone calls. So people that are at that op status versus someone who's a brand new MQL, demand gen might want to take different tacks on how they're approaching marketing to that person, right? So I really do think it is a necessary thing to have, and I think it helps demand gen allocate resources on how you might do something with somebody who is a equivalent status but a different stage.
I think that there's a lot here, and that's probably worth a session almost in and of itself. But I want to keep us moving, Don.
Yeah.
We've talked to kind of best practices, really high level. Let's double click into process and responsibility here. How do we set this up correctly? And I think the first question is actually the most important. Who is responsible for what between like your growth and demand gen team and your sales and sales ops team?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, sales operations and demand gen or marketing operations both fall under the umbrella of revenue operations, right? It's my philosophy. It's our philosophy at Lean Data that revenue operations is really responsible for what the customer journey is, and that means from the point that person comes into the marketing platform, goes through the sales team, runs through the lead status funnel or lead stage funnel down to becoming an opportunity, how they move through the opportunity status stages, become a close one deal, and then get handed off to a customer success team, and how they're managed as a customer. So that end-to-end journey, that customer journey, is really what revenue operations is responsible for. And I think both demand gen, marketing operations and sales operations functions fall under that. And it really helps because then, you kind of reduce that sales versus marketing, yin and yang, because if you can, drive the understanding that, revenue operations is responsible for that customer journey. When marketing operations is doing their function and sales operations is doing their function, both are on the same page. Both are having that customer journey, that customer life cycle in mind whenever they're going through their day-to-day responsibilities of what they're doing in demand gen or in sales. So as far as lead routing specifically, I think it does fall under, at least, how that person enters the funnel it does fall under demand gen and marketing, of how that person comes in, how it flows through the marketing platform that you have. But it is tied to the sales ops function because, that person's obviously going to live in your CRM. So, how those fields are reflected, how those statuses and stages are reflected, what things trigger off of different behaviors, how you do scoring if you're leveraging scoring. Those are all things that are going to live in your CRM, which is what sales ops is responsible for, but it's probably going to be really defined and driven from the demand gen side of the house. So it's really important that demand gen and sales ops have a great relationship, because while there is a division of labor, and that sales ops is going to architect a lot of what demand gen wants in the CRM, it's really demand gen that is going to drive what that looks like. And it's probably going to be marketing operations setting that up in their platform on the marketing side, whether they're using Marketo or HubSpot or whatever flavor of marketing platform that they have.
And it's something where kind of thinking holistically like that, it does up level both disciplines a little bit to have a seat at
Yep.
the revenue table versus it just being demand marketing going, ah, we got the leads, and sales
Right.
going, the
Walk off.
leads were bad.
They don't want to just
Yeah.
walk away, right? You want to
Yep.
have sales operations there to help drive the reporting around it too, right? Like I mean, our sales ops team is works hand in hand with our marketing operations team to help drive a lot of our reporting, our dashboards, the alerts that we're sending to sales. Each have a hand in making sure that those things happen, that happen smoothly. That we iron kinks out. It's really important to make sure that you have that.
Well, I think that's a good transition into the second point here, and I'm sure we've got some folks on the start of the pandemic. It's about 50-50, right? Some folks have decreased, but how do you kind of optimize this process when demand is maybe fluctuating constantly as a result of market conditions?
Yeah, I mean, optimize routing when the demand is heavily impacted by the market. So, I mean, obviously, if the market is going down, that impact usually reflects itself in, reps not having enough material to work with. One of the things that I always try to make sure that I communicate to sales teams, you can't, as a salesperson, you can't be 100% reliant on marketing, driving all of your meetings, right? I think there is, part of the responsibility of a sales team is that, they're going to drive their own pipeline. They own, they are the CEO of their territory. And while, getting inbound leads is fantastic, getting leads from partners, reseller channels, getting from your SDR team is amazing. At the end of the day, if that dries up, you are still responsible to drive some of that on your own, right? So I think having that as a baseline understanding is it helps alleviate some of that problem if the demand goes down. It may mean that the AE is going to have to do more work to get stuff in the pipeline. Obviously, if you see that getting to be getting even worse, that becomes an issue of that's where you need to start looking at like what other things may have to happen in your organization. Hopefully you're not in that position. On the flip side, if you have a situation where a heavy impact means you're increasing the number of leads, what I've seen done is having that scoring of the lead be something that's dynamic to figure out, okay, I now have a ton of leads to be followed up on. How do I as demand gen, RevOps helping demand gen figure out where do we prioritize the follow up, right? And I think you do that through having that scoring. Wow, I totally did a segue. I didn't even know we were talking about lead scoring next. I swear to God, I didn't look at the next slide. But I mean, that's really what it is, right? Because if you do have something that's an impact in a positive way where you have a lot more leads, you got to start looking at ways to score either based on firmographic information or behavior information to help drive for the sales team what to do first and what to maybe not follow up on as importantly, if you do have a large, tsunami of leads coming in and it's great if you're in that position. I think I'm looking, I don't know if can they see the results of our poll?
They can see the results of the
Yeah.
poll. Yes.
So it's almost like half and half, it's almost like, it's evenly split between increase, decrease, and stays the same. So I was kind of surprised. I was interested to see what that was going to end up as an answer. So, I think for the folks that are having that problem of increased volume, you really need to look at lead scoring.
And conveniently, it's almost like on demand. We're here to talk about lean scoring. Don, I like actually, let's start with the first, number 3 here, because I think it dovetails nicely into the point that you were making. Then we can talk some of the specifics here. Where do you start in terms of coming up with lead scoring? How often do you iterate it? How do you segment cadences and all of that based on?
Yeah. I mean, it's something we're working on at Lean Data right now. In the past, what I've done is I've said, okay, number one, the first thing you got to do is understand what is your total addressable market, right? because the phone book is huge, right? So you need to look and say, okay, what are the people that can absolutely maybe ever use my service or product, and what are the ones that can't? Now, from what you call total addressable market, we call it a TAM. You then need to decide what is the ideal customer profile, right? So of that total addressable market, what are the, is it geography? Is it size of organization? Is it the amount of funding? Is it the amount of sales? Is it a specific industry? There are all kinds of firmographic things that I think are readily available. Data points that you can look at and say, okay, if it meets these criteria, that's now my ideal customer profile. And then even within that ideal customer profile, I can tier it, right? Like, here are my tier 1, my tier 2, my tier 3, and maybe rest of the world, right? So you could tier it into those segments. Now that's on the account side, right? So now you have your tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 accounts. Then the other side of the other side of the equation is your personas, right? Because you're obviously, for each of those tiers, you're going to have certain people that are probably going to be responsive the best to your message, whether that's C-level, VP level, manager level, director level, analyst level, whatever it is. You're going to have different personas that you can then rank, like, let's say A, B, C, right? So I got A persona, B persona, C persona. I now have tier 1, 2, 3. So now I kind of got this little quadrant. And then within that quadrant is really where you can then figure out, when you're crafting your cadence, where am I going to spend more time versus less time, right? So, maybe my tier 1, my A level persona, those are going to be my, very highly personalized, maybe I'm going to send them something in the mail. They're going to be longer tail, more steps involved. You're going to invest a lot more time and effort around your A1, type person that is in that tier 1 ICP and that A level persona than someone that's maybe a tier 3 and a C level, right? So that tier 3 C level is someone that you're probably going to maybe do an automated cadence, right? You're not going to spend as much time doing something personalized, or maybe you're probably not going to maybe make as many phone calls. Maybe you do more email. You're not going to send them something in the mail. And then as you kind of blend that all out, and you have these different techniques and tactics around how you're setting up those cadences, you can then measure it over time. How well are we performing? Are we getting more traction and conversion on our A1s versus our C3s? And then you can look at that by cadence. You can then classify your cadences, like, this is an A1 cadence. Here's a B3 cadence. Here's a C2 cadence. Whatever that is, you can then measure how well your sales team is performing against those different cadences to know whether you need to tweak it, to change it, to maybe tweak your approach on how you're doing it.
And this is something too for folks, if you really want to go deep into building out total addressable market and account definition and all of that. We have a session coming up next month at our 2021 Planning Week, of which Lean Data is a sponsor. We have a session about building an ABM strategy that actually goes very, very deep into this TAM identification, and not on the operation side of it, but how do you actually determine what cadences and sequences we do against different categories. Just like Don's saying, it's about leads, it's about accounts as well.
And the reason you want to do this, especially when it comes to ABM, right? Because now if you apply ABM against what I just talked about, you're going to have 20 people, right, in a company who's let's say they're a tier 1 account. Well, you're going to have 20 people that fall in all these different categories of personas. You want to make damn sure that you have different messaging going to those people, because the last thing you want to do is send the same cadence to every single person that you have at that account, because they all talk to each other. Trust me, and it's like, oh, did you get that email from Don? Oh yeah, I did too. And like, they forward it to each other and they laugh and they never reply to you, right? Whereas if you stagger,
sorry, go ahead, Don.
No, I was going to say, if you stagger how you're approaching that from an ABM status, and you're using different messaging, and you're using different tactics as part of that messaging, then it's going to be like, oh yeah, I got mailed a bottle of bourbon, because you're the VP, and then like maybe someone else goes, oh, I didn't get a bottle of bourbon, and then you get the email, and it's like, well, I'm interested, and then they call you back, So it's, if you take different tactics, people are going to be like, okay, this person is serious and getting a hold of us. Maybe we should reply to the tactic that they're using,
And I think this is something where if you want to see a bad example of this, just look in your LinkedIn inbox if you haven't since the start of coronavirus. But how many people have stumbled across, hey Don, I just stumbled across your profile. I want to sell you some
Okay,
nonsense.
I have a trick for that I'm going to share, and I
Oh,
can't remember where I heard this from, and because I should give credit because it works and it's hilarious. You need to go into your LinkedIn profile, and if you go to mine, please add me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to accept you. If you look at my profile, you'll notice that my first name is a star. It's an emoji, okay? Because what has invariably happened, any of these automated platforms that just spew out messages or spew out connection requests, it'll be, hey, star. Because they just copy paste from LinkedIn, and they don't remove the emoji. So anytime I see "Hey Star" or "Hey Star Don," I know that it's automated, and I just ignore it. Like I know that there is zero personalization behind it. I don't care what platform AI thing you did to try to personalize your message to me. I know that it's not personalized because you have that emoji. And so I don't remember who I heard it from, but I tried it, and it's a trick you can use if you do have that problem of getting a lot of spam requests. Add an emoji to your first name.
we should call this lead scoring and life hacks with Don Othos.
You're right.
We're gonna have 60 people that have emojis on the front of their profiles there.
Add emojis. The other thing that it does is if you do add it to your name. The other thing that I noticed is if you do run list reports in different in different things that pull in from LinkedIn, like Sales Navigator, it ends up putting you at the very top. No matter if your name starts with A, it doesn't matter. Emojis go first. So you always end up at the top of whatever list is being sorted. If it's doing it alphabetical, you always end up at the top of that list. So that's another little trick.
I love it. I think that, Don, you're always going to be a star at MSP, so you don't have to worry about that. But I think what we want to dive into here.
I was debating whether to use a star or a check mark, or I didn't know what to use.
I see the unicorn and the shooting star a lot. Everybody's a unicorn. Everyone's
unicorn would be a good one. I actually,
yeah,
so everyone says that I'm a unicorn, so I actually have, this is my RevOps unicorn that I keep at my desk. This is Buttercup from Toy Story. That's my little unicorn, my RevOps unicorn.
it's life hacks and lifestyles of the rich and famous.
Right, here you go.
Right. Let's talk about technology here. We still got a couple more questions coming in. We got about 15 minutes to go.
Okay.
Don, this is a question that actually came in from Jen at PayPal, and this is a great one when we think about technology and lead routing. What are the platforms involved here? How does
what are all the tools? What's the magic sauce?
Yeah. How do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously Lean Data is what we use. We use Lean Data at Lean Data. We are a Salesforce shop from a CRM perspective. Our partners, one of the things I was talking about is, the importance of making sure that you have the right person follow up to your lead when it comes into the system, right? And we at Lean Data, that's what we do. We make sure that those matching and routing rules are bulletproof. And the reason why you want that is because you want to turbocharge whatever sales engagement platform you're using, right? So both SalesLoft and Outreach are partners of Lean Data, and they both do fantastic jobs of automating adding somebody to a cadence or a sequence based on different characteristics of that person in Salesforce, right? So you can now say, if this person comes into my platform under this campaign, add them to this sequence or a cadence, like I just talked about, right? That whole A1, C3, B2, you can then say, okay, if it's a B2, add them to this cadence. Now, we turbocharge that with Lean Data because the problem with that outreach and SalesLoft have with their automation rules is that if you send it from the wrong person, it is a horrible customer experience, right? Like if you get sent, a follow-up from somebody that you're already talking to, or somebody at the company's already talking to you, and you get sent a response from someone that is not that person. It's like, well, wait, I'm already talking to Don. Why am I getting an email from Richard, right? You want to make sure that it goes to Richard because Richard's the one that's already talking to them. So that, at Lean Data, we kind of turbocharge those automation rules that you use in your sales engagement platform. So sales engagement is another important piece, right? You want to have that to really drive your sales follow-up from your SDR team, from your sales team, from your customer team. You want to be able to have that engagement platform that puts that person in a cadence or a sequence of multiple steps of touches through phone calls, emails, getting things sent in the mail, SMS messages, LinkedIn, whatever it is. You got to have that sales engagement platform that sits after that person gets routed and matched to do those touches. And I think once that person's a customer, I think the other important thing on the customer success side is having a platform that measures the health, that measures the adoption of your product, that measures what interactions is that person having. So you want to look at something like a Gainsight, right? That's going to help drive kind of that health score, what that looks like on the back end. The other thing I want to talk, that I could talk about, I think, again, partners of Lean Data are platforms like ZoomInfo or Clearbit or something that's going to enrich the data, right? Because another thing you want to make sure that you're doing before you do that account lead matching or routing is you want to make sure that the data you have is enriched, right? And then that's where platforms like ZoomInfo or Clearbit come into play. So I think at the very highest level, that's kind of the platforms you want to see and that you're using in that lead, in that customer journey from start to finish. You need to have a marketing platform. Obviously, we talked about marketing platforms, so you want to look at something like a Marketo or a HubSpot or a Pardot. That's kind of the marketing platforms that are out there that you want to make sure you have. I don't know, Richard, am I missing anything?
I think that covers a lot of it. And I think the interesting observation too in this space, that notion of shortening the distance between the data and the activation. ZoomInfo, Don, I don't know if you saw, they launched Engage, which is their own lightweight sales engagement platform. It still doesn't solve the lead routing problem, but just that importance of connecting the data to where you're going to use it. And this dovetails nicely into a question that actually comes in here from Garrett. And Don, this is something we were talking about, the transition and kind of B2C marketing and some of those trends bringing into B2B marketing. And Garrett's question is a good one. It's about sequences and cadences. Would you recommend having a one-to-one relationship between individuals in a cadence and a sequence, i.e. there's many people in cadences, or is it one person in one cadence at a time? How have you seen that shake out?
It really depends. I mean, the way that I've seen it, there could be reasons why you want to leave somebody in a cadence, even if they've replied to you. And there could be reasons why you want somebody in multiple cadences. Let me. I'm trying to think of an example. If I go to somebody's marketing page and I register for a webinar, let's say, and then I end up in a webinar, right? I'm now in the webinar cadence. If I then turn around and then ask for a demo, like, you don't want to restrict me from now being in a requested a demo cadence. You want to make sure that I'm absolutely in both, right? So I think there are some good examples of where you could have somebody in multiple, one person in multiple cadences at a given time. Best practice is probably to not do that because you do want to keep your messages focused when you're trying to reach out to someone. I think it's really around the context of why that person's entered your system as to whether you want them in multiple streams at a time.
I think that's great. And I think it kind of, as we round out here, we already hit on data just a little bit, but Don, we've got about 5 minutes left before we start to wrap up here. And folks that are here live, please do submit your questions. We're going to answer one of these and then one live and then one of these and one live up until we run out of time here. We touched on a lot, But one of the questions that comes up time and time again, we see this in MSP, and this was a question submitted by Haley from Cobalt. How do you get rid of low quality leads? How
Yeah.
do you make sure that you've got good lead to account matching in Salesforce? Like, how do you do it?
Yeah. So, and Richard and I actually, you know, in full confession, we were talking about this before we started, right? Because I think one of the questions that comes up is like, well, if you have 5 different emails for somebody, do you want to merge them all into one record? And I said no, right? Like because I think there's really some issues around opt-in and opt-outs that you want to make unique to the email, and therefore you want to have separate records for that person in your CRM. You know, I think the bigger issue with CRM, and I think Richard and I came to this conclusion, is that it's difficult to have in your CRM the visibility when somebody has multiple emails of seeing all those conversations in one place. So I think you do need to have multiple records, but I do think that the bigger issue is how to address having all of those conversations visible in the same spot. As far as getting rid of bad quality leads, you know, there are reasons why you probably want to keep, you know, I think it depends on why it's bad quality, right? So I think if it's bad quality because you have a bad email address, you know, you want to what I've done is I've said, look, if it's a bad email, let's give it let's call it an engagement score of -1, right? So if I have a -1 engagement score, I can then sort my contact view in my CRM by that engagement score, and then know that the bad quality leads are at the bottom. So if I'm a rep going after like a General Electric, right, where I have maybe hundreds of names in my Salesforce, all of the ones that are already I know are bad are going to end up at the bottom, right? So you don't necessarily want to delete them, right? You want to be able to have that data there so that you know that you have that data, whether that person's left the company or the email, you know, emails bounced, right, which may mean they have left the company. You at least have that record of information available, but you're not putting it front and center to your sales team. You know, you're leveling the ones that you know are probably better leads. You're surfacing those at the top of your contact views, and you're doing that by the level of engagement that they have with that person. So that's kind of the way that I've dealt with it.
This is great. A really quick follow-on question to this. It's a live question, and sorry for not teeing you up in the chat panel, Don. How frequently would you recommend folks refresh or enrich their data and their
Oh,
records in the CRM?
yeah. I mean, we do it weekly, right? I mean, I think all of the data platforms that are out there have some level of enrichment, a cadence that they're on. There's a rhythm that they have around how they do their enrichment. You know, data is stale the second that it hits your CRM. So obviously, if you know that the rhythm from your data provider is, you know, by Friday night they have fresh data, I would make the sync over that weekend, right? You know, you want to refresh your data as quickly as your data partner enriches their information. Because you want to make sure, you know, again, you want to make sure that you have the freshest information in your Salesforce, in your CRM to have available for your sales team.
So, going to take a live question here.
And
Another one.
and one more point, we
Yeah.
do typically do that on the weekend, again, because you don't want to burn through your API syncs. And you know, if you're going to run a bunch of enrichments, it's going to cause a lot of API usage. It's best to do that on the weekends.
That's a good pro tip right there from someone from experience. I'm sure has encountered some challenges with that. This is probably going to be our last live question unless Don answers it in like 2 sentences.
Okay.
Question live from Garrett here. This goes back to what we were talking about before with campaigns and all of that. Where does Salesforce campaign influence come in with regards to marketing contributions? Any tips on using that for marketing attribution?
Yeah, I mean, we use it in our reporting for sure, and I've always used it to speak to how well you know, marketing is performing against our open opportunity pipeline, right? Because for those that don't know, campaign influence can be pulled in to show what marketing influences are occurring against an opportunity. The key, okay, the key behind that is you have to make sure that your sales team are adding contact roles to the opportunity for the people that are involved with that opportunity, right? and so that's usually the hardest part of doing campaign influence, is making sure that your reps are adding anybody that's involved. I don't, if it's somebody who's, who's on the on the legal team reviewing a contract, they may have come in as a lead at some point in the past, right? Like, make sure that every person that they're dealing with in that customer prospect life cycle on that opportunity are added as contact roles, so that you can make your campaign influence reporting as rich as possible, because that campaign influence report is only as rich as the contact roles that are associated to the opportunity that you're driving that report from.
I'm sure if we ask the question in a poll, what's the most common number of contacts associated with a close one opportunity? Probably be one.
What?
Don, I want to hand it off to you. Obviously, thank you for this,
Yeah.
but I know you've got a few things to say about lean data, so you can go ahead and take it from here.
Oh, for sure. I mean, a lot of what we talked about today, I was trying to make it at high level as possible. Obviously, I think lean data, we have a platform that speaks to a lot of this, right? As I said at the beginning, a lot of folks, as they grow their organization, they run into that problem of doing, lead to account matching, making sure that the assignment is right at the front end as soon as it happens. And again, that is a pain that I think a lot of Salesforce users have. Salesforce organizations that have Salesforce have, and it is the number one thing that we address. Like, we solve that pain. A lot of our customers have found, if they've never used us before, as soon as they use us, they don't know how they live without us. A lot of the rules that we have around that matching and routing are through a visual interface that's drag and drop. We can pull in different nodes, like your sales engagement platform, like your data enrichment platform, to make sure that certain things occur before and after that lead to account matching happens. And then the other piece of our platform is attribution and engagement. So we also have we do a really good job of showing kind of that customer life cycle of when someone starts as a lead and goes through to a customer. When did they get touched by marketing campaigns? When did they get touched by sales and other people at your organization? And it gives a very, not just around the analytic reporting around it, but also a visual interface for your team within Salesforce to see when those things happen. So certainly, if you find that that lead to account matching, kind of that territory assignment is something that you're running into where you have some pain, give us a call. Reach out to me directly. I'd be happy to talk to you about how we've used it, not just internally at Lean Data, but how I've used it as a customer outside of Lean Data at other organizations I've been a part of. We'd be happy to talk to you.
And one of the things that's really exciting in partnership with Don and the team at Lean Data, you put on a pretty awesome event coming up here in October. Don, do you want to say a few words about the rise of Ops and OpsStars?
Yeah, OpsStars is kind of like it's our revenue operations community. We do a great event. I've always found that the OpsStars event at Dreamforce has always been like the number one thing to make sure we're a part of. Obviously, this year we're not doing Dreamforce, so OpsStars is a virtual event this year. So it's going to be a half day. It's a 2-day event. One of it is kind of our paid registration for some more in-depth training and information. The other part of it is a half day of free sessions that we have with a lot of sponsors and speakers that are going to speak on different topics. We have different tracks that you can join based on your persona. Pete Kazanji and I are actually going to do a session on sales forecasting, which I'm really excited about. So if please, you can sign up. Go ahead and block. Go ahead and block your calendar now. One of the things that I think I find with virtual events is if I don't block my calendar off as soon as I know that event is happening, you end up doing other things and you forget, and then you're kind of trying to split your time and you're not focused when that virtual event comes up. Block the time on your calendar now. Tuesday, October 20th, Wednesday, October 21st. It's going to be a great time, and I'm really looking forward to doing my session with Pete.
And not only will you catch Don and Pete, but also if you ever haven't had a chance to see Craig Rosenberg from Topo speak, he is phenomenal. He is such an amazing speaker.
He's going to be one of our keynote speakers.
And it's excited to have Don and the team here. Don, on behalf of I think the 21,000 members of Modern Sales Pros, everybody in the audience today, the team behind the scenes with Gina and Emily, thank you so much for sharing your time with us and sharing all of this amazing, amazing knowledge, Don.
My pleasure.
Excellent. Well, take care, Don. Have a wonderful day, and we'll get the recording out to folks probably by the end of the day tomorrow. Cheers and stay
Great.
safe.
Thanks, Richard. Take care.
Bye bye.